The first thing I saw that night was the glow of red and blue lights bouncing off the pine trees as I pulled into my driveway, and my stomach just dropped because I already knew who had called them. I hadn't even turned off the engine of my old Chevy before 3 squad cars slid in behind me, gravel crunching under their tires. One officer stepped out, hand on his belt, and said, "Ma'am, we got a report of trespassing." I remember just staring at him like he'd grown a second head. Trespassing. On my own cabin. Then out of the corner of my eye, I spotted her peeking from behind the HOA sign at the end of the road. Phone clutched like a trophy. Same woman who wrote people up for mailbox height and fence paint. Except this time she'd called the cops on me. I told them my name pointed right at the porch beam where I'd carved it myself 10 years ago. One officer radioed dispatch, and when confirmation came back that the deed was in my name, I felt relief for a split second. But when I turned to where Karen had been watching, she was gone, slipped back into the bushes like a kid caught cheating at hide and seek. And that's when I knew this wasn't just nosy neighbor nonsense. She was hiding something, and I was about to find out the hard way. That cabin had been my family's safe place for more than a decade. My husband built half the deck before cancer took him. My boy learned to fish on that dock when he was still missing baby teeth. We'd had summers with barbecues, winters with cocoa, and more sunsets than I could count over that water. So when the HOA first formed around the lake, I didn't think much of it. Quiet hours and trash rules didn't seem like a big deal. But Karen treated it like her own kingdom. Beige paint-only lawns measured with a ruler fines for leaf piles. Still, I never expected her to come after me like this. The next morning, when I thought the whole ordeal was behind me, I walked down to the mailbox and nearly choked on my coffee. Bright orange notice slapped across it, unauthorized occupancy. I ripped it down and looked across the road. There she was again, sunglasses on coffee cup in hand, smirk plastered across her face. I shouted, "You got something to say to me, say it to my face." She just lowered her glasses and said, "Prove it." I reminded her the cops already had, but she leaned in like it was a secret and whispered, "Some things aren't as simple as they look." Then she turned her back and walked away. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the cabin made me jump. And then I saw flashlights bobbing near the shoreline. 2, maybe 3 figures creeping along my dock. My heart hammered. When one stepped into the moonlight, it was her Karen flanked by 2 men I didn't recognize. One carried a toolbox. Another had a crowbar tucked under his jacket. I stepped onto the porch and shouted, "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" She held her flashlight up like a shield, and calm as could be said, "You shouldn't be here." I laughed bitterly. "This is my property." She tilted her head and said, "Not for long." One of the men dropped his light and the crowbar flashed in the beam. I demanded to know what they were planning, but Karen just turned and walked off with a soft, "Let's go," leaving me staring at the dock my husband had built, wondering how far she was willing to go. The harassment kept coming. A letter slid under my door telling me I had 30 days to vacate. An inspection notice shoved in my mailbox claiming my shed was illegal. My son showed up that weekend, furious, demanding answers from Karen, but she just shrugged at him and said, "The rules apply to everyone." Then came the deputies with a clipboard and a temporary court order saying my shed and dock were encroaching on common property. My knees nearly gave out when I read the document. A boundary line had been corrected just last week, and right under it was my signature, but it looked like it had been dragged through mud. It wasn't mine. We went to the county clerk's office the next morning, and sure enough, the record showed an amendment filed by a surveying company connected to, of course, Karen's nephew. The clerk-kind woman named Rivera flagged it immediately and told me, "Paper lies show their seams. Bring your old surveys. Bring your husband's notes. We'll get this in front of a judge." I walked out with shaking hands, but also with the first flicker of hope. Neighbors began quietly slipping me support. Mr. Howard, old vet with a cane, handed me faded photos showing the dock standing long before the HOA even existed. When we opened up the shed that Karen's crew had been sniffing around, we found a wooden chest my husband had tucked away. Inside, original surveys, developer plats, even water rights agreements that gave my property controlling interest over lake access. I stared at the papers, at his handwriting in the margins, and realized this wasn't just about my dock. Karen wanted the lake. All of it. That's when things turned ugly. Hired men tried prying boards off the dock in the dead of night. The HOA shut off my power, claiming non-payment even though I was on auto pay. A spray-painted warning appeared on my mailbox. Get out now. Then a note slipped under a rock on my porch. Vacate or everything you own goes underwater. My son told me the HOA controlled the west floodgate, and if they opened it during a storm, my shoreline could be gone in an hour. Sure enough, one stormy night, we caught Karen and a man at the control station, hands near the wheel. Deputies intercepted just in time, their flashlights cutting through the rain as they ordered everyone back. I'll never forget Ortiz's voice. Firm, sharp, board doesn't trump state law. By then, our lawyer Jenna had filed motions so fast, the courthouse clerks started recognizing her by voice. We gathered photos, surveys, witness statements, even the gasoline can deputies found near the dock. The hearing came quick. The HOA's lawyer tried to paint me as reckless. My dock is unsafe, even waved their forged plat in the air like it meant something. Then Jenna stood calm as a mountain and laid out everything. My husband's notebook, the water rights, the old surveys, the floodgate incident, the threats, the trespass reports. Neighbors testified one after another about harassment and fear. Even the fire marshal spoke about attempted arson. The judge looked over his glasses, shuffled the papers, and finally said, "The amended plat is fraudulent and void. Water rights remain with the property owner. Harassment and forgery are referred to the sheriff for criminal investigation." The gavel hit, and it was like thunder clearing the air. For the first time, I felt the weight lift. Karen's face went pale, but she held her chin high and walked out without a word. You'd think that would be the end, but bullies don't stop just because a judge says so. That very night, she showed up at the edge of my driveway holding a gas can. Deputies flew up faster than I'd ever seen, cuffed her, and read her rights while she muttered, "It's never over. People like you ruin everything." The following week, charges piled on her: fraud, trespass, attempted arson. Her nephew skipped town. The board crumbled resignations one by one until the HOA existed only on paper. The judge dissolved it completely within days. A couple weeks later, the neighbors organized a cookout on my dock, the same dock Karen had tried to claim, tear down, and burn. We rebuilt it together, kids hammering planks, folks bringing casseroles, laughter carrying across the water. Someone carved my husband's name into the railing, and when the sun hit the lake just right, I finally breathed like I hadn't in months. But I'll tell you this, the quiet after a storm isn't always peace. Sometimes it's just people picking up the pieces, deciding how to live again. The lake's ours now. No more HOA queens barking orders, no more orange flags staked in the mud. Just people, water, and memory. So that's the story of how one woman tried to use paper and fear to take away everything my family built, and how we fought back with truth, with neighbors, with law. But I want to know what you think was justice really served. Do you believe folks like her ever truly stop? Or do they just wait for another way to strike? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you've ever dealt with an HOA or a neighbor like this. And don't forget to share this video so more people can see what happens when ordinary folks stand up to power.